We've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Well, good morning to you, my friends. Nice to have you here Monday morning, the 9th day of December, live in the house of Lakey. Lakey Unleashed, the daily update. Good to have you here. Everybody's happy, right? Everybody's a good Monday. Everybody loves Mondays, right? We love Mondays. At least you and I get to be together on a Monday morning. On all the platforms out there, good morning. All the Facebook streams we're on, all the Rumble feeds, all the YouTubes, all the Twitter patients going on right now, the X feeds. Everybody, YouTube, how are you doing, YouTube? Good to have you here, and pleasured, pleased, and thrilled. Can you believe 9th day of December already? 9th day of December. I'm looking at my calendar, and I got a Christmas holidays coming up, and I'm just amazed that this year is wrapping it up and coming to a quick conclusion. But you know what? The exciting thing is we may take some time off around the Christmas for the daily update, but sometimes when I travel with this new format, I get to take this show on the road. As a matter of fact, this Friday, good Lord willing, and everything works out right, that I will be live on the road doing the show from probably a hotel room. But it's going to be fun. We get to actually converse one with another as I gallivant about the globe and gallivant about the country. So anyway, nice to have you here. If you're new to the program, this is only our second week of going on the daily update. I'll just tell you who I am. My name is Jimmy Lakey, and as you see right there on the screen, it says my name is Jimmy Lakey. And this is the Lakey Unleashed podcast. And what we do here is we just kind of go through the news for a little bit and kind of some of the conversation about things that are happening across America and around the globe. And then I would love for you to, if you would, go to the other, I'll tell you how to get to the Patreon page and other ways So everything you see here is free, but there's other interviews that I've done and I'm doing and conversations we're having that are behind a paywall, and that means you got to pay. Sorry about that, but I'm worth every dang penny of it, and it's only $9.95 a month. That's all you got to do. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Feel free to subscribe. I appreciate you spreading the word. Again, this is free. This is a public service to you, the community of the digital world, and just keeping in touch with all my old listeners. Many years, talk radio fixture in Colorado, and most recently 10 years in northern Colorado and the Denver region of the iHeart Kingdom, but they gave me a kick to the curb and said, "You're out of here, Lakey," and the commitment to local programming basically ended. And so here I am, be as local as possible for you. All right, here's what we got going on. You had Donald Trump. What if I struggle with this? If you can't call it tweeting, you're supposed to call it Xing anymore. And Donald Trump doesn't tweet or X because he's on his own platform, Truth Social. What does he do? What's the verb of that? Is it truthing? Well, Donald Trump was truthing over the weekend, and he basically said there should be an immediate ceasefire between Ukraine and Zelensky and Putin. He says, "I know Vladimir well." He put that up there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Over the weekend, evidently, Demented Joe said that he believes stability has been brought to the balance of power has now shifted, and it's in good hands now that Joe Biden has been the president of the United States in his 4 years. Let me ask you, this is a very serious question. Is there anybody out there that can argue that the foreign policy and the stature of America and the overall global picture of where we're at regarding war and conflict, does anybody really believe that it's better under Joseph Biden? You can love Joe Biden. You can think he's your old crazy uncle that's just kind of losing a marble here and there. But is there anybody out there that could really make the argument that the world, the global stage, is better off than it was 4 years ago? Biden and his people saying over the weekend that the foreign policy pictures and the foreign policy of Biden has made the world a better place since he has been the president. And I'd just like to ask, is there anybody out there that really, truly believes that? And if you can make the argument, feel free. Go to the comment section of the page. If you're on the Facebook, go comment there. If you're on the Twitter, anywhere you can place a comment, and those actually show up right here in one stream on my feed. You just saw the one from Linda a moment ago. Said, "Thank God for Jimmy on a Monday morning." Linda, thank you for you make my Monday. You really do. And so I know we asked that question, though, about the economy. Are you better off now than we were 4 years ago? I'm talking about the global picture. I'm talking about, is the world better off than we were 4 years ago? Are we less close to nuclear holocaust than we were 4 years ago? I mean, we had this Christmas of season, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. Is there anybody out there that thinks that we're closer and have more peace on earth and more goodwill towards men than we did 4 years ago? It just kind of shows the dementia and the demented and the idiocy of Joe Biden to go out there and make a declaration that the world stage is better off, and the balance of power, he said, has been shifted in the Middle East. In other words, this is a guy who didn't do his best to stand by Israel. This is a guy who did his best to handcuff Israel in the response to terrorism in their own 9/11, which is per capita, it was worse than our attack at 9/11. It was worse than the Pearl Harbor attack, but yet for some reason, Joe Biden wants to handcuff them and has done his best to do so. And anyway, but Joe Biden says the balance of power has been shifted in the Middle East. And the answer to that question, Bostrom says, no, it's not. It's just amazing that people can make such stupid statements. The problem is that the problem we have out there is that there's people that will believe it. There's people that will absolutely positively. I mean, you realize, as everybody's doing the postmortem and realizing that Kamala Harris was just an old battle axe, rehashed, crazy, extreme liberal, even though we know that and we recognize that now, there's still probably, even today, there's probably 47% of America that would actually vote for her just because she has a D. Just because she has a D behind her name, there's people that will vote that way. And that really is problematic, and it should scare the heck out of all of us. That if you're just voting for someone because they have an R behind their name and you say, well, they got to be good, you need to really rethink your political priorities. Now, it could be that they're the best person out there, But we've got a lot of trouble because of in the world and in the economy and just globally and just as a country, because people had an R next to their name and they did certain things, and definitely because of what people have a D behind their name. But that's the scary thing. Even though we know the policies of Joe Biden failed, they failed us economically, they failed us globally. The policies of Joe Biden have been nothing but an utter failure. And even though we know this to be true and a fact, there's still well over 40% of Americans that still cast their ballot for Kamala Harris, either because they didn't like the orange guy or because they just vote D's and they're idiots. So anyway, glad to have all of you here on the program. You see some of the comments popping up. Producer Chad is sorting through those and getting rid of all the dirty words. No, I don't think anybody's used a curse word, though. We appreciate that. Even though it's podcasting, we're not bound by the confines of the terrestrial radio signal. But as I say, this is always a family-based program. This is a family program. I even keep my clothes on for most of it, although I'm not standing up. You don't know what's happening. Oh, I've got pants on. I promise I do. Good to have you here. All right. Got a couple of things I want to go over with you. First of all, Monday morning, glad to have you. Some of you agree. You're happy to have me on a Monday morning, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you tuning in on a Monday morning. I also appreciate you spreading the word about this new little venture we have going on here. And I really mean this. If you could go subscribe to the Patreon page, you're going to get content there that you won't get here, and it's going to be there's going to be private Q&A sessions back there that we're going to have once a month or so. We're going to get together in a big chat room with the Patreon, and it's patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. That is exclusive content. There's already content there. We've got more stuff that's going up there today. So patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Go subscribe. It's only $9.95 a month. And there is a 7-day free trial. Isn't that exciting? 7 days free trial. So you can go through all the content that's going up there almost daily. And we flooded it last week, so I took a couple of days off so you could catch up. But patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, no obligation, 7-day free trial. Go subscribe, and that helps support the Lakey Unleashed podcast and a lot of other adventures. Somebody sent me a message, I think, in the chat room, and then they also sent me an email, said, hey, is there any way this daily update could be uploaded as a podcast? Give us time, my friends. We're just now trying to get the wheels moving on this bus, and so that probably could be possible. The daily update could be up. We'll get to that. Let's just everybody settle down, my friends. Settle down. Doing the best we can. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. If you're on the YouTube this morning, let me know where you're at. I'd love to make a chat, a comment out there. Send me an email. You can email us at info@jimmylakey.com. Love to have you there. Just Facebook, let us know you're out there. Twitter, hello, Twitter. We're on the Twitter feed, and it's booming right now. I'm looking at the numbers. And matter of fact, Twitter's rocking on the Twitter feeds that we're on. All right. Good to have all of you here. Last week was Giving Tuesday. Did we participate in that? And tomorrow in Colorado, all of you Colorado-based people, it's notice a product placement here. This is how high tech we are. Chris, hello, welcome in Loveland. Glad to see you. I just saw that pop up. This is my charity, and tomorrow's Giving Tuesday. And if you haven't made a charitable donation to Rivers Promise, I'd love for you to do so. And we're wrapping up this week. This is the week that we're wrapping up our Christmas for Kids program, in which we're buying as many kids as possible, hundreds of pairs of shoes in Rwanda. All the kids there donate to my charity work. Tomorrow's Giving Tuesday. And I would love to have you give to our charity work. $35 buys a kid a pair of shoes. These are kids that would not have a pair of shoes. $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for 30 days. $65 sends a kid to school for a month with meals. I mean, there's just so many options. It's $75, I believe, to buy a young lady feminine hygiene products that they normally would not have access to in their poverty. And all of that, and that's our Christmas gifts for their kids at our Legacy Christian Academy. And tomorrow in Colorado, you're going to be hearing a lot about Giving Tuesday, Colorado Gives. We are not on the Colorado Gives website. We do not, we've just, it's a lot of work to do and we haven't done it, but you can go to riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. All right. I was working hard, my friends, working very, very hard. Yesterday, it was Sunday, the Lord's Day. You got to go to the church house, and appreciate you. I hope you went to the church house. But I also then had a little interview that we could only fit in yesterday, and I did it right here from the house of Lakey. After the church and all the good stuff there, I did that interview. I'm going to play that interview for you in just a moment. It's you've heard the phrase "drain the swamp," right? I think we've heard that. Brian Daughtry, who's my guest yesterday, he found the swamp, I think, before Donald Trump did. He wrote a book called The Devil Inside the Beltway, and it's about his journey and experience into the world of, well, he'll tell the story, but I want to have an interview. He want to talk about the Trump election, and the only time we could get it on the recording was yesterday, and I'm going to get that to you here in just a moment. I promise you I shall. That's going to be good. All right. Matter of fact, before we do that, let me play. There's a short video for Rivers Promise. This is a shoe drive. I'm not going to be able to use this much longer because we're going to wrap that up. And this is going to go straight to an interview and a discussion that I did with Brian Daughtry. He wrote a book called The Devil Inside the Beltway. It was recorded, I promise you, but it's very pertinent, very live. And we might as well go ahead and do that. But before I do, don't forget the Dallas Cowboys play football tonight. So there's still time to be disappointed and have this Monday go to hell in a handbasket. My Dallas Cowboys play football tonight. They're playing the Bengals, so I'm going to come out on top with this one because Joe Burrow is like my favorite quarterback, one of my favorite stars of the NFL. And so even if the Cowboys suck it up, which is likely to happen, there's a tendency to do that, Joe Burrow will be on the field. So I'm in a winner chicken dinner proposal. By the way, anybody watch college football? Some of you fellas out there, you may want to, ladies as well. I don't mean to be chauvinistic, but you may want to comment. Are you happy that Alabama did not get in the final playoff system? You know, there was talk that they were going to bump SMU because they lost a close one, Southern Methodist University, which is where if I was going to go to law school, that's where I really dreamt of going to law school. SMU. It's a beautiful campus in the North Dallas area, the Highland Park area. It's gorgeous. I like that area of town, and that's the old money Dallas. And so they were talking they were going to bump SMU out of the playoff system, and because they had a loss and put Alabama in. And I said, you can't do that. A lot of folks said this. You can't do that because Alabama didn't go to a conference championship. They didn't have to play an extra game. So one team steps up to the stand and says, we'll play an extra game this year, a conference championship, and we lose a close one, but you're going to kick us out of the playoffs. Then why go to a conference championship game? So the committee, it's stupid they have a committee selecting these people as if it's some beauty pageant. The committee said, hey, we're not going to do that. So SMU is in, Alabama's out. A lot of Alabama haters out there. And I like Alabama, the Roll Tide, but I'm glad they didn't make the playoffs. They were not deserving of the season. So anyway, college football's out there, and it is happening. It's a fun time. Fun if you're a college football fan. If you're not a college football fan, it ain't all that fun. All right, here we go, my friends. You ready for this? This is going to show you a quick video of me roaming the streets of Rwanda. Some of you have seen this, but I want to play it again because tomorrow is Colorado Gives Day. And in Colorado, where a lot of you are listening at right now and going to be watching throughout the day, as you're picking your charity, first of all, give to your church. I want you to give to your local church. I want you to give to your local church where you step up to the table and you eat and you feast your soul and you learn about Jesus and all the stuff you go to church. Give there. That's your first place to give. But after that, if you have anything left over to give to other organizations, I would encourage you and I would beseech you, therefore, brethren and sistren, to consider Rivers Promise as one of your giving partners at riverspromise.org. Oh, by the way, look at the product placement. This is a mug, a beautiful blue mug, isn't it? Beautiful blue mug. I feel like I'm one of Barker's beauties here, except he's not sexually harassing me. Here's the. I don't know where that stuff comes from. The blue mug is here, and it has 1 Hour Heating and Air logo. That's Corey Clinton. I heard from Corey. Corey found us. Corey, if you're listening this morning, drinking from the mug that you handed out at the golf tournament. I got the blue model and the black model. I took two because it was my golf tournament. So Corey, and he was a title sponsor, 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. So see that product placement? That's beautiful, isn't it? Rivers Promise and riverspromise.org. All right, no further ado. This is me roaming the streets of Rwanda. And if you've seen it, don't panic, okay? It's going to be good because there's an interview that follows up right after this with Mr. not Brian Malone. This is an interview with Mike Daughtry, and he wrote a book called The Devil Inside the Beltway, and we talk about the victory of Donald Trump. We did this yesterday, and it's pre-recorded, but you won't know the difference, so I don't want to have any deception. There's no smoke and mirrors here. I really am this pretty. This is not a filter. We are real live, and we're upfront and honest. I mean, I look this good even if the lights aren't on and the camera's not on. Everything's wonderful. I look this good, but this interview was pre-recorded, so we want to be upfront. Somebody named Corey says something. Maybe Corey Clinton. That may be him. Product placement. It's a good mug too. It's his daughter has a company. It's underneath No Co Creations. If I flip it up to show you right now, I'd spill coffee on myself, and then it'd be like I file a lawsuit against myself for making the coffee too hot. All right, here we go. Yesterday, with the Rivers Promise video, it's real short about Christmas shopping, riverspromise.org, and then the Michael Daughtry interview follows it. Roll the tape, as they say in the show business.
Gifts for kids, and we started early with our fundraising. I'm in an area of Rwanda in Kigali called Nyabagogo, and it is crazy. It's all the taxis, all the markets, everything is here. I'll see if I can show you more. All right, time to go into the market. This should be fun. Gonna do a little bit of Christmas shopping. Not all of it, but just look around for some shoes and some items. Should be fun. I'm walking up a big hill. Welcome. All right, I made it into the market. Section of children's shoes we'll sort through the next couple of days. This man wants to be on the camera. There we go. All these are children's shoes. We'll start sorting through them and start getting the right sizes. It's also raining outside, so we could be here for a while. Welcome to Africa. Welcome to Rwanda.
All right, there it is. Don't forget the children's Christmas drive. We're going to wrap it up probably this week and get our final funds sent over to Rwanda. Go to my charity page, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Donate. $35 buys a kid a pair of shoes. These are kids that would not have shoes. We try to replace hundreds of pairs of shoes for these kids at least once a year. $90 buys a young lady that normally wouldn't have this feminine products. For a year, around that same price. That's $75. $90 buys a kid a mattress and a blanket to sleep on. They usually sleep on banana leaves. So out near our school. So riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Please make a donation. Year-end donations welcome, but we're going to wrap up the Christmas drive here real soon if you're watching this around Christmas. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome in a friend, old-time friend from the radio show. Hadn't talked to him in a while, though. But I'm glad he's going to jump here in the House of Lakey and the Lakey Unleashed podcast. He is a CEO of LabMD, a cancer testing laboratory, founder of the Justice Society. And in the early years of entering and fighting Washington, D.C., which we'll talk a little about, they're all recorded in his great book. It's called The Devil Inside the Beltway. There's the cover of that. You might want to get a copy of that if you want to know how an outsider can fight the bureaucracy and the corruption of Washington. That's probably a good book for you to get. The Devil Inside the Beltway by Michael Daughtry. And he joins me here for the Lakey Unleashed podcast. Michael, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning.
Fancy. That book cover just popped up right there. It's like real professionalism around here.
I mean, I'm so impressed. I expected no less.
You should always expect the best. Please do. All right, Michael, you've written a book. Give people the summation, because for years people heard me talk with you regularly on the old radio broadcast about the devil inside the Beltway. It's your story, right?
Well, it's turned out to be a prequel. It's a narrative about what it's like to be under a government investigation. It's written like a novel, and it's my perception of the true story. The lawyers want me to put it that way, but and it's been out 11 years now, and it's actually still sells because it's timely. It's because now I'm called the early adopter. Like I fired the warning shot before anyone really was understanding it outside of the swamp. And really just basically I had a medical testing laboratory, and I was a hardworking American entrepreneur in healthcare. And one day I got a phone call, and some guy said, we found 9,000 of your patients out in cyberspace. And I didn't believe him, and I wouldn't pay him the money he wanted to fix the problem. And I come from a law enforcement family in Detroit, and I thought he was crooked. And we didn't have any victims. We didn't have any complaints. We didn't believe the file of patients was out in cyberspace. And so it was just a shakedown racket, we believed. We couldn't prove either way. And then 2 years later, the government started calling me and investigating me and the company. And the story is really about what it's like to be invested by a bureaucratic lawyer about technology who can barely reboot his computer. And the book's about what happened before because I was so outraged, but what happened because of the book, which was Darrell Issa reading it, House Oversight having investigations, a whistleblower coming out, media writing on it. Because that book, because it is well written, it's not a screaming rant. It's not an axe grinder, and it really raised some things up. So then those dominoes that fell help us win and beat the Federal Trade Commission in court 6 years later. Still losing the company. So winning against the government means, I don't know, that you're not cremated, but you still lose everything. And now, now it's just a narrative to teach people. And I got more books in me to talk about this because I think now the difference when the book came out is that people didn't get it and they just shut down early. And now people get it a lot more.
It's called The Devil Inside the Beltway. Been on 11 years. We'll show you the cover, the fancy cover again here in just a moment. All right, so you're talking about the corruption, the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. Trump has just, a couple of months ago, several weeks ago, won his second term. He says his first term is going to drain the swamp, and now he says he's really going to drain the swamp and probably has a lot more personal motivation to do so. He's got Vivek Ramaswamy, Elon Musk, and they're going to really start looking through the budgets and find all the government waste. Give me your perceptions. Are they positioning themselves, and is there going to be any luck in these next couple of years of finding the devils inside the Beltway, the swamp monsters, and getting rid of them?
Well, this is a war, and he can't fight it alone, and it's for survival of America as it was intended to be. But what I learned, and I would have never known this had the tree not fallen down on me. And hopefully the tree won't fall down on most Americans. But Americans do need to wake up because you do get hurt even if the tree isn't falling directly on you. And it started in 1914 with Woodrow Wilson when he really created administrative agencies and started the swamp building. We see our pictures in civics class of legislative and judiciary and executive branches, but we don't know that underneath now versus the 19th century, there's over 200 to 300 agencies under there. And that's the real power. And they don't come and go with presidents. There's still Obama appointees in there, things. And they're all lying in wait, like that Tom Cruise movie, War of the Worlds, when they were buried underground, just waiting for their moment. And that's what's a good analogy. So I want people to understand that it took a century to morph into something really, really bad. It was innocent, like the little alien in the movie, it wasn't that cute, and then it gets awful. And it got bad in the 70s, 80s, but then Obama turned it up. And Republicans, Rhino Republicans made the economy very large. I mean, the government very large. And so, it doesn't exactly shrink when there's a Republican. So Trump is not either one of those two. And I honestly think the human brain can't take in reality unless they experience it themselves. And as war hardened Trump is, being a New York real estate businessman, he wasn't prepared for DC. I remember when he was president for like 5-6 weeks, and he tweeted on Saturday that the FBI was spying on him. And I had 10 radio shows Monday morning, all conservative, about this can't possibly be true. He must be nuts. And I said, I don't know that's true. How can I know? But I can tell you, show me in the rearview mirror when Trump has said something extreme and then turned out to be wrong. And so I think he is a lot more savvy to who he's bringing inside, because he had a lot of insider threats the first term. And people buy into the illusion that there's two sides, and a lot of times it's but you watch when they were attacking him, watch what Republican leadership was standing down in that first term. Who was standing down just whistling past the graveyard? This is you, Lindsey Graham. this is you, Mitch McConnell. So I think he's up to that a lot more. And then look what Mitch McConnell did, days after he wins this time, starts playing games with the majority speaker. Anyway, it's just a second inning, folks.
Yeah, let's talk about, Trump's going to say, and his team's going to say, we got a mandate. We won all the swing states. We did we did great. We won the popular vote. You have to give us what we want. But you're right. He's going to have some monsters there in the House. He's going to have some in the Senate that just view in the bureaucracies as well. They just view as a president as kind of a temporary resident, and they're going to be in office 36 years. They're going to be in the bureaucracy for a career, and they think they can wait him out.
And because nothing's changed. I mean, they think it's cute and funny. I mean, and to a certain extent, they're not wrong. It's formidable. They've been an invisible giant for a century, and they've been forced to let their presence be known because of Trump's first term. And that was a shock that caught everyone off guard. And then when Biden ran again, they were prepared. This is I'm very interested. I always thought he had the votes to win, but I didn't think they'd let him win this time. I'm that kind of jaded. And so because I know it's a hard time taking in when you're taught this fairy tale of the American government when you're in school, and that might be true about George Washington and Abe Lincoln, but they've been gone a long time. We're not taught about the reality of what's going on now, and people don't tell you. And it's because everything's interwoven in Washington. Everyone's codependent. You whistle past the graveyard because you might need that person in 10 or 15 or 20 years. So it's really a very toxic, unhealthy place, and it's hard to break through. And it takes someone like Trump, who is not codependent for his survival in that group. And they do everything they can to go after that. There's few people that will do it. And yet, he's had several years of chipping away now. And it's pretty cool. I mean, we're still far from done. It's not like, oh, he's back, it'll be fixed. No.
Yeah. When you said you didn't think they'd let him win, unpack that a little bit, because people say, oh my God, there are election conspiracy theorists out there. But I think there was a lot of us. I think that phrase too big to rig was a very important moniker because there are shenanigans that happen out there. And elections aren't nationalized. There's states and locals and communities. And hell, you can't tell me that there's honesty happening full time in like places like Chicago and pick any other place. But right. Unpack that. You didn't think they'd let him win.
Look at the power of Nancy Pelosi from Psycho San Francisco, but she had a ton of clout, right? So they can crawl up as a real kind of minority thing and wield a lot of clout. So look at what I consider the four voting cities of corruption, which would be Atlanta, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit. That if you look in the past 3 or 4 terms, that they hold their votes back till 3 a.m. And then boom, here comes 300,000. And I was watching that pretty closely this time because, what's the first thing that the election industrial complex does when you say something like that? Well, it's the same thing they do with everything: name calling, screaming, isolation, silencing. I mean, it's the cookbook's not new. But if you look at the numbers, when I saw Atlanta not really holding back and Republicans voting very early this time because they were told to, and encouraged you, which is new. They weren't encouraged to do that before. Then you see that, the Democrats were kind of in a hole. They couldn't just see what they needed from Republicans on election day and then shove it in. And no, that's not going on all over the place. But when you have something this tight, when you've got to write off California and New York and Oregon and Washington and Hawaii, and you've got and the Northeast pretty much, and you're fighting in Pennsylvania with Pennsylvania versus Philadelphia, you're just, it comes down to these things, and that's where they focus because they know they're way ahead of us. So that's what I mean as far as let him win. And also, I mean, the FBI spying on him, Obama being involved in that, no accountability for these people, none. There's no accountability. And, we're moving, the American public's coming along, getting it. It's not easy to get. I mean, it's not pleasurable to understand.
Yeah, it destroys our. We grew up with Schoolhouse Rock, just a bill on Capitol Hill making its way, and it was also pleasant and Pollyannish, and then you find out, wow, it's much more like a. We thought some of these things, House of Cards was just a movie. We thought that the show Scandal was just a television show, and then you go, wait, that's a little bit more realistic, probably, than I care to recognize.
Right, and who wrote that? Someone based in D.C. and where'd you get the inspiration for those ideas? And who could think of that stuff? And that's the thing about my book. People go, "Oh, that book's so riveting." I said, I didn't have to create anything. I just had to report it the right way. I mean, it's like in my book, I talk about one of the funniest parts is when the FTC did not want me using the U.S. Postal Service. Use FedEx. And I was like, because the security is too tight, and we won't get it in time with the U.S. Postal Service. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, I mean, there's just things that you experience with these people. And when you tell someone that hasn't experienced them, you have to deal with them thinking you're crazy or having a bad day. And I worked in medicine for a long time. I was not used to people thinking that I was going to the school of making stuff up. And so it's a new experience, but it's coming around, I think.
This was a news story for about 2 days, 3 days, a couple of weeks after the election. Joe Biden, old demented Joe, would say, I got the most votes in presidential history of, whatever, most popular president ever. And nobody yet has explained where those 18 million voters are at that just suddenly, poof, disappeared. I mean, 18 million.
That's because those with an explanation are silenced or not given platform, so that's a thing. And so then they relegate them off, I mean, my gosh, just look at what they did to Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
He was just, so it's really, you can have, a lot of, look what they did to Julian Assange. I mean, they sent a message to journalists. I mean, the Julian Assange message ties into this because it's like, if you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And I would often say on news shows that I'd be on, I'd say, look, they're never going to bring Julian Assange to trial. They wouldn't win. This is a whole ruse to slowly kill him and send a story to media that stay in your lane because we have a much bigger mouth than you do. And now there's really not a lot of media people. It's hitting another turn now because the mainstream media is really just imploding from within. So I think we've turned a corner. When Joe Rogan has got all this clout and Megyn Kelly Tucker and soon Jimmy Lakey are going to have all these people. It's great because the talking heads are no longer just Pinocchio by Geppetto, the editor, Geppetto, NBC, Geppetto, all those. Like when Obama was president, I don't understand that he, for himself, intelligently, evilly, but intelligently, positioned all these people involved with NBC, CBS, and ABC in his office. So you had the spouse, the head of CBS's brother's a speechwriter, the ABC VP is husband is his press secretary. And you've got all these inroads, and that's how you control it. And in my next book, I have this chapter that I've drafted called "Don't Give 60 Minutes 60 Seconds" because it's just a platform mouthpiece for them, and it's shameless. And
the ABC debate with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I mean, it should have been reported even on Fox and everybody that it was Kamala's best friend who runs the ABC network. Nobody reported that. Not even the talking heads on some of the conservative channels. I heard that on talk radio. You heard that on podcasts. No one wanted to out their fellow brethren that they have to go to the journalistic awards, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Nobody. ABC's president, the news president, is run by Kamala Harris's best friend.
Yeah, and what's really scary to them is it didn't work. It's kind of like they've been firing the gun, and suddenly the bullets aren't coming out, and they're just like, "What's going on?" And I mean, I'm hopeful, but they don't just give up; they just double down. I mean, this is not a quickie, and he can't do it alone. So you see what he's doing now versus what he did the first time. And loyalty is his number one thing. And he has to be loyal back to those people. I really wish he would have pardoned more people when he left the first time, but I mean, look at Joe Biden pardoning Hunter. And they say, I said, sir, they're hypothesizing he's going to pardon, Fauci and that incredibly deeply loyal Republican Liz Cheney.
You know, they've told us forever that think of this game they're playing right now. They go into the administration 4 years ago saying that Hunter Biden's laptop is a total fraud, but at the end of it, they're saying we're going to pardon him for everything on his laptop. They go in there saying that Fauci's, I call him the little effer on the radio show. The little effer is Fauci was a saint and a scholar and maybe the fourth part of the Holy Trinity. And now they're saying, but we might want to pardon him. It really is bizarre that it's like, when were you telling the truth? Were you telling the truth the first time about the laptop? Were you telling the truth about Dr. Fauci early on, the little effer, and Liz Cheney's a saint? She's just she's a turncoat. Some things I can say on podcasts, but I'm not going to say.
Well, but the thing about it is she's not a turncoat. We just found out who she always has been.
True.
And so this is the thing when we talk about rhinos and Democrats, and I say, you've got patriots or maybe conservatives. I don't like that one. I mean, even some of the conservative tanks, it's the human condition to work and then sort of try to morph into a potted plant, and so all these organizations, let's say, start up as a movement and then they become an organization. And with what went on with the Cheneys and the Bushes, I mean, remember how Bush and Obama, they all didn't get along very much, but then Bush isn't president for like 3 months and they're sitting together having like coffee. It's really shocking. It's like the cartoons that we watched as kids when we had Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner do the work, and then they would punch out at the end of the day and go to the bar.
Remember H.W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, he became best sons, called Bill Clinton his son. I mean, this is the guy that knocked H.W. Bush out of politics, humiliated him, didn't let him win a second term. And they're traveling the world raising aid for Haiti or something. And it's my other son, Willie Jeff Clinton. So it's all just there's a dog and pony show.
Game. There's a different code, a different existence, a different rule book, a different marinating that is shocking to the fundamental senses of what we're taught as values in the country of hard work and honesty and God and accountability and cause and effect and respect for your fellow man. I mean, this, that was the biggest thing. I felt like I look back on me when I first went to DC around 12 or 13, and I got a lot done. I was not naive, but still, compared to what the truth was, I think they're lying. I think lying around here is normal. And you don't want to say that to anyone because you don't want to sound crazy.
Yeah.
So, it's like landing on some sort of different planet. Well, they all look human, but I mean, I belong to the Capitol Hill Club, and I would be in breakfast. And this is all Republicans, and in the morning I'd see, Trey Gowdy and Jason Chaffetz having breakfast, and oh, what a disappointment. So now that now and just like what it's
yeah. Michael Daughtry will wrap up here in a second, but I want you to give us we talked about how Trump won. You're surprised they let him win. You're right. This is the second inning, and we've got in our time, we've got kind of a Babe Ruth figure at the home plate. How do we make him successful? What does he need to do? What do we need to do to try to make the very best of this we can in the next couple of years?
Use your phone to call rhino Republicans in Congress and tell them, I mean, they're scared of the masses. And it really isn't that. No, you don't have to turn into some sort of anarchist picketing upside down and burn your career to the ground. You can call, you can make your voice be known. They count the number of calls. I mean, they know when something happens, they understand. You can get involved, and you can say things to people civilly that disagree with you. I think there's been a bit of a crack here. I mean, you can write off Hollywood and celebrity culture, but I mean, in Colorado, I don't know. It used to be, now Colorado's somewhat purple to blue, which is shocking to people from 25 years ago. And this experiment didn't work. Admit it and try to fix this. And people that don't agree with you are not terrible human beings. Where'd that come from? That got all rejected.
Yeah. So you've written the book, The Devil Inside the Beltway. Trump's looking for the swamp monsters inside the Beltway. You've spent more time in Washington, D.C. than he has. What if you had him in a room one-on-one and you're just saying, hey, President Trump or Donald, if I can call you that, here's my advice. Or, I mean, you up until he spent the night in the White House, never spent like 1 or 2 nights ever in Washington, D.C. until he moved into the White House. What would your advice be if you had a one-on-one conversation with him and say, here's what you got to do the next couple of years to find the devil inside the Beltway?
Don't trust anyone just because they work here. And put not ye faith in judges. I mean, and there's way more to do. I know that's just one thing, but and you can't do it alone. So this is really important what he's doing. But he's, I think he's learned a ton. And I think now we just have to be loyal to him and get out of his way, I hope. Yeah. We'll see.
We shall see. The book is called The Devil Inside the Beltway. I showed it there. I'll show it again here in just a second. Michael, if somebody wants to follow you, read the book, then get the book anywhere books are sold. Do you have a fancy website?
Well, I did, but I'm kind of rebuilding. I still have michaeljdorey.com, but if you want the book, it's an audiobook, ebook, hardcover, softcover, Amazon. And that's the easiest place to get it. The audiobook's pretty dang good.
I like that you founded the Justice Society. Every time I read it, I think of that Saturday morning cartoon where they had the Justice League and Super Twin Powers activate. And,
when I trademarked that, I got a call from their lawyers.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I said, no, I know I can trademark that for this, and I'm not. Are you not going to be making any cartoons? Are he said nope. So it's fine.
Well, arguably Washington's a cartoon, so that's how.
Yeah, that's right. It's Hollywood for ugly people.
It's Hollywood.
I never understood that. Now I do.
Yeah,
they all think it's theater, and it's not.
First day I lit up on this thing, somebody said, "Wow, you do have a face for radio," and that hurt me a little bit. But it's listen, I've had a television show, people. Don't forget that. It didn't go very far, but I've had a television show. Michael Daughtry, Amazon, all the places fine books are sold, and I appreciate you, my friend, hopping on here. Let's do it again. It's been a long, long time since you and I got to chit-chat together.
It's always fun and effortless. Thank you very much, sir.
You got it. Let me show you the book again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the book you got to get a copy of. It's called The Devil Inside the Beltway by Michael J. Daughtry. And get a copy of it, and he'll tell you his story of taking on the bureau. He got to D.C. thinking going to change the world, and suddenly found out he's full of corruption, and it's a nasty, nasty place. Michael J. Daughtry. All right, one more time, remind you, go give to the charity. You saw that video earlier, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. All right, there we go. That was an interview I did pre-recorded. That was Michael Daughtry. He couldn't make it live on the show, so we pre-recorded it. But fantastic interview. The Devil Inside the Bell. He's a good guy, just kind of fun to talk to, and they got a lot of great insights. And I'm telling you, he knew about the swamp before we heard about the swamp. He knew about the swamp well before anybody. I see your comments coming in. I hope you have Mr. Daughtry on your guest every few weeks. Great guest. Thank you. Numbers are climbing even throughout that. Joseph says, great chat. Chats are coming in. So anyway, it's a fantastic conversation. Do you agree with Michael Daughtry? You can't believe they let him win. Somebody earlier had posted up that you say, what happened to those 18 million votes that just kind of disappeared? Old Joe Biden got them. It is interesting that a lot of states crack down on their those mail-in COVID ballots, and somebody pointed that out in the chats a moment ago. Yeah, the COVID mail-in registration. Somebody pointed that out, and so is that what happened? Do you think? I mean, the 18 million votes that just disappeared and did not show up in the ballot box this time that it did 4 years ago. So nobody's really wanted to dig in, give an explanation of that, and it's a lot of votes that just disappeared. A lot of people that just chose to stay home. It's very, very strange. I think I'm looking at the numbers. Thanks for the comment. I think we're right now looking at all the feeds. We're at record numbers right now. We're 1 week into this thing. We put up the question in the chat rooms earlier also. We're 1 week in. We're kind of experimenting on some things and testing out some things. And sometimes I hit a wrong button. And sometimes producer Chad tells me my mic's off when it should be on. All of these things are all true that they're happening. But love to hear what do you think it is that is you've been your favorite part in this first week. That was a longer form interview. We've done a lot of shorter form interviews. I'd love to get your feedback on the program, and thanks for tuning in. This is a free broadcast. Don't forget, we do have a paid portion. And by the way, you say, what kind of content's on the paid segment? Well, it's going to be interviews just like what you just heard with Michael Daughtry, longer form interviews, conversations. And for instance, that could have very well been a paid for just exclusive content, but that's what you're going to find on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey, patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, since we're such high tech, and I have not yet we've not made this a PDF. I just found this while Michael Daughtry and I were talking. Evan, what did we decide that you call it? If you're truth socializing, if you're tweeting, if you're on Twitter, you tweet. If you're on X, you X, and if you're on Truth Social, do you just truth or you truthing? I guess Donald Trump. Have you seen this photo? I don't know. First of all, I'll show the photo first. This is the photo of Jill Biden. They were at the dedication of the new Notre Dame facility. And I don't know if you see Jill. She's looking at Donald, and she's got just goo-goo eyes at him. She got very nice goo-goo eyes at him. And a lot of folks were, as a matter of fact, I saw one meme that said, make sure in life you find someone that looks at you the way Dr. Jill looks at Donald Trump. And that's true. Well, Donald Trump had fun, so he was truthing, I'm told, just what you do. You truth on the Truth Social. And he was truthing, and he put out this meme, and this is actually quite funny. You ready? You ready for this? This is the drum roll, please. This is the if we were real fancy, it'd pop up on the screen, but we ain't that fancy, okay? We're still low budget, and I always want to remember our roots that I'm still the redheaded stepchild of the podcast world. Don't forget that. That didn't change just because he poop canned me out of radio. You ready? This is it. I'm teasing it. Coming on the screen. A fragrance. That's just hilarious. A fragrance your enemies can't resist. Donald Trump. He's got little cologne bottles there. He truthed that out this morning. So that's one of the most epic photos. And I'm sure it's causing somebody's head to explode. That went viral over the weekend, by the way. Just a photo. Forget the caption. The photo itself went viral as Donald Trump get the goo-goo eyes from old Dr. Jill Biden. By the way, do you really think she voted for him? There's people that actually think she voted for him. And matter of fact, people were using this meme and said, yes, I voted for him. Because you remember she showed up at election day in a red dress, which is a savvy politician's wife. You would know not to wear a red dress, which is symbolic of the Republicans' red wave to election day. But she wore a red pantsuit or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's possible, I guess. I mean, she didn't like Kamala Harris. We do know that. There was no love lost there. And you know, all this stuff, they go to the convention, they hold hands, and they sing Kumbaya, and they kiss on each other. It's all fake. It's all fakery. And it really is fakery. We had that interview last week we played it on the show. We played a portion of it on the show. It's going to be up on the Patreon page, in which we talked about the behind this. Oh, he was on the show. Yeah, we had him on the show. Oh, gosh, we've had so many guests already in a week, but we talked about how that transition happened. They kicked Joe to the curb, and after Joe got kicked to the curb, they were anticipating the probability that they were going to maybe have an open convention, and maybe Michelle Obama could come riding in on a white horse, and they would nominate Michelle Obama to be the nominee. But Joe Biden one-upped him, probably Dr. Jill did. She tweeted out and said, we support Kamala Harris. And shortly after that, remember, the Clintons came out and were supporting Kamala Harris because the Clintons hated the Obamas. So everybody kind of blocked off the Obamas and the plan, and it went downhill from there. But I don't know if she voted for him, but maybe she at least left her ballot blank. Maybe she at least left her ballot blank. I don't know. Maybe she had I don't know who she voted for, but look at those loving eyes. Listen, gentlemen, if your wife is not looking at you like that every day, staring at you lovingly, I'm sorry. She should be. Yeah, there's Jill Biden. That's Jill Biden. That's I don't know if she voted for it as well. Hey, I haven't mentioned this the entire program, and I want you to remember that you can sponsor this podcast. We're growing by literally leaps and bounds, looking at some of the numbers coming in. We're on, I think, 7 or 8 streams right now, several Facebook feeds. We're on the Twitters, we're on the YouTubes, we're on the Rumbles, and we're blowing it up better than ever this morning, and it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. And if you'd like to be a sponsor in on the ground floor, well, we could have grass on our floor too. If you want to be on the ground floor, I'll tell you this, we are going to launch we have it almost put together. Producer Chad and I were meeting on it this weekend. It's going to be called the Founding Fathers Package, or the Founding Mothers Package, or the Founders Packet. And if you want to be an advertiser, you're going to get on the ground floor. We have some great opportunities for businesses. If they're your local business, if you're a national business, it doesn't matter. From sea to shining sea, all What Obama say? 54 states, all 54 states. We can get you. We'll take care of you. And there's some exclusivity available in certain categories in certain regions. But if you want to, here's what you do: just send us an email, so we'll get you the packet of information. It's info@jimmylakey.com. Info@jimmylakey.com. We're going to start bringing in some of those sponsors and got some already starting to reach out, line up. And if you want to jump in on the ground floor, it's going to be the best pricing ever. It's really cheap compared to probably what you have paid for advertising before, especially with me. This is there's no middleman in this thing. This is there's no corporation taking cuts off the top. So info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com, and then there's the option again to subscribe to the Patreon page, patreon.com/JimmyLakey. So businesses, you can help by see that little right there, the sponsor businesses, and just maybe you're an individual, want to dump a little bit more into this, and you have a foundation, or you just want we support this, you want to be an underwriter, feel free to do so. And then also the subscription for everybody else, $9.95 a month. All right, a couple of other news stories here we want to get to this morning. By the way, don't forget to pass out the to pass the word around when you see this appear on the news feeds and tweets, or retruth it or reshare it. It stays on the feed, but we want other people to see what's happening. Anybody watch that interview with Donald J. Trump this weekend on the old Meet the Press? With the it was NBC. I believe it was NBC. I thought Donald Trump did fantastic. I thought he did a great job. He held his own. It was very kind of combative, if you will. She was asking kind of some aggressive questions. She would never ask that aggressive a question of her old friend Kamala, but she was Donald Trump did a great thing. There's one of the news stories out there. I'll read it from Fox News. Senator Mike Lee from Utah is taking NBC to task because they selectively omitted a key part of the 14th Amendment. They asked Donald Trump about birthright citizenship during an interview, and about the number of changes he intends to implement once he assumes office. And he says, you said you're going to end birthright citizenship. And for those of you that are playing the home game, that means if you get one foot in this country and you drop a baby, that baby has birthright citizenship. And therefore, that's kind of the strategy. A lot of folks get over here right about the time their pregnancy is due, have a baby. That way they have the old non-politically correct term was anchor baby. They had an anchor baby. Well, under the 14th Amendment, someone born in the United States is granted citizenship of whether their parents are citizens or not, if you're just born here. And Trump confirms that he intends to end the policy, quote, on day one, calling it ridiculous that you can come over here and the non-politically correct ways have an anchor baby. Well, NBC host Kristen Welker pushed back. She was horrified by this. She was appalled by this. She said, "Oh my God, how do you do this?" And she said that states the 14th Amendment, Kristen Welker, who's I'm sure a constitutional scholar. I'm not sure she could spell the word constitution, but she's a constitutional scholar. So Kristen Welker pushed back and said, well, the 14th Amendment says states, all persons in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment by executive action? And Trump said he was open to using executive action. We're the only country that has it. We need to end it. We're the only country that has a birthright citizenship, right? Why do we have it? Anchor babies, if you will. Well, Mike Lee shared a clip. The senator, who is actually a constitutional scholar, Senator Mike Lee shared a clip of the exchange on X yesterday, and he rebuked the NBC host, Kristen Welker, for being a screw-up, for being an idiot. And he highlighted that she left off her quote of all persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Do you hear that? All persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, they shall be granted citizenship. So the omitted words, all persons and subject to the jurisdiction, he says words matter. And the senator then, if you want to follow him on Twitter, he had a 12-part thread on X or Twitter in which he broke down what it means. So if you're at the water cooler and somebody's out there going, Donald Trump wants to end the birthright citizenship, go read Mike Lee. It's a schooling. It's an education on his Twitter feed, his X feed yesterday, about those words that people like Kristen Welker often leave out when it comes to the 14th Amendment and how the constitutional interpretation that he has about what it means people born and under the jurisdiction. There's two different things he says birthright citizenship is not necessarily as easy and blanket of a blessing as what we have made it. And it's a 12. If you're on the X, go look up Senator Mike Lee and see what he tweeted out yesterday. Maybe we'll go through that tomorrow. It's 12 parts of goodness. I'm telling you, it is 12 parts of real good constitutional education, and it's done at Twitter link, so you don't have to go to the law library and get out some kind of a book out there. You don't have to do that at all. All right, boy, I can't believe we've burned up an hour already. Some of the comments coming in. Responding to Michael Daughtry, I just see this one, and producer Chad might have already put this up there, but I just now saw it, so I want to say, do we believe Colorado's really red? It's a fair question. Kathy says this because Michael Daughtry said Colorado has turned purple to blue, but Kathy says, I believe Colorado's red. You got to get rid of Polis, Jenna, Griswold, and their stooges and the machines, and Kathy believes it's red. Well, we do know that most of Colorado is red outside of the Denver, Boulder area. If you look at the map, that's where the Colorado votes come in. It's the same way with California. We make fun of California. Hello, California. If you're listening from California, give us a little chat there. It's the same with California. You have these population centers that pollute the entire state. If you look at the demographics and the redness of the state of Colorado and California and a lot of other states that maybe are blue, there's a lot of red out there, but they have these big population centers. But it's a great point by Kathy. Do you believe that Colorado truly would be red? Now, if you look what we've done here, we've held in Colorado, we have Gabe Evans now in the 8th Congressional District. He got rid of Yadira Caraveo. She was an incumbent. He beat her. Lauren Boebert kept the seat that was abandoned by Kenny Bach, and then we have Jeff Hurd winning up in the mountain region. So we've actually done quite well at sending representatives in district by district to Washington, D.C. Jeff Crank kept the seat that was held by Doug Lamborn for years down Colorado Springs way. So we actually have a pretty decent representation in the Hallowed Halls of Congress from Colorado. But those population centers are there. But it'd be hard. Just the numbers are there, and thank God we have local elected officials and we have representatives from more concentrated areas. Because I'm just thankful that Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper are not our. I'm just happy that Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper are not our only representatives in Washington, D.C. Just marble mouth Michael. All right, Jim says, please do the Mike Lee explanation. Okay, let me do that tomorrow. And the reason is I have it here, but I don't have the Twitter open on my screen, and it's open on my phone, and it just gets awkward and to scroll through it and things like that. So we'll get the Mike Lee explanation because I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion. This is not going away. The border crisis is existing. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris have stood, no matter what they say, they have stood for open borders. They have disgraced America. They have disgraced the national security of America. And they've really just disgraced this the borders of our country and the sanctity of our country, and they've done it for political power, political gain, and it's going to be a discussion. But it is interesting. Again, if you think that you're watching NBC, and I appreciate Donald Trump going on Meet the Press, but listen, you've got to understand if you watch MSNBC or NBC or CBS or ABC, you're not watching a journalist. Kirsten, whatever the hell her name is not a journalist. They slapped some makeup on her. She might have got a degree in journalism. Maybe she didn't. She may have a degree in underwater basket weaving for all I know. She's not a journalist. She's a script reader. They give her some questions, and she gets out there, and she thinks she's smart, and she thinks she's going to make a quote of the 14th Amendment. Again, I don't think she could spell amendment, and I'm not sure she could spell Constitution, but she pretends to be some constitutional journalist. She's not a journalist. She's a political hack. She's bought and paid for by the Democrat National Committee and the Democrat Party. She has an agenda that was evidenced in that debate that she supposedly co-hosted, and it was the most ridiculous debate ever. And it's disgusting. I had this. I believe it was Michael Daughtry. I've done so many interviews lately. Michael Daughtry and I talking about it. Just look at the ties between the Democrat and the press rooms and the cabinet and who's running the networks. They're all. It's an inbreeding thing, my friend. And Kristen Welker, Donald Trump, I thought did great. If you didn't see the whole interview, you should. Jim says, hey, if Mike Lee's schedule would permit, maybe get him on for a day to have him discuss. We'll work on that. But the Mike Lee explanation, I know some of you are saying you're not on Twitter or X, and that's why you want me to do it. We'll do it tomorrow because it's 12 threads, and I need to have it printed out in front of me. That just makes it a little bit easier because one computer here is occupied because I'm talking into that camera right there. So that's what we got to do. All right. So there's the Mike Lee. Go look it up if you are on Twitter. If you watch, see that MSNBC interview. Anybody following this trial in Washington, D.C. Of the guy that stopped a threat on a subway? And he stopped the threat on a subway. Daniel Penny is his name. And the jury deadlocked on one of the top charges. And so the judge said that they should go on to another charge. And a lot of folks are now saying this judge is just hell-bent on getting a conviction of Daniel Penny. A lot of folks say he's a hero. And it's going to be interesting to see how the jury votes. But the jury deadlocked Friday, and he says, okay, go home. We'll throw that charge out. But Judge Maxwell Wiley on Friday agreed the prosecution's request to dismiss the most serious charge, second-degree manslaughter, after the jurors told him twice, hey, we're locked up on this. And so he dismissed the manslaughter, but then they returned Monday to consider a lesser charge, and Wiley issued a clarification. He said the court concluded it would be lawful to direct the jury to go to count 2 because the DA has now withdrawn count 1. The court thought under the law that the withdrawal was dismissal. Anyway, the defense is opposed to all this stuff, and they say that you're just hell-bent on a conviction. It's going to be interesting to watch. This case evidently seems to be ripe for appeal if Daniel Penny loses. But it's Penny's lawyers tell the judge the risk here now is a coercive verdict, a compromised verdict. It would force them into what they have to submit to something is manufactured. They've already told you they're deadlocked on a serious charge, and you're just kind of, well, let's try another charge. And so the defense is not real happy about that. We'll see if that case, if they're deadlocked on that one. They were not even considering the first case at all. They were the second charge at all. They weren't considering that, but now they're supposed to consider that. All right, I asked a question in the chat room this morning, and we're going to wrap up here. But I ask you, we're 1 week into this. It's hard to believe that we're 1 week in. We're hitting record. Now, even now, as we keep going, the numbers keep climbing. I'm watching them in the studio bump. It's going to be great because it's going to be fantastic to just see where this thing goes. Feel free in the comments. What's been your favorite part in the last week? We're just kind of getting our feet. Sometimes I push the wrong button. Sometimes my mic is off when it's supposed to be on. We're working out the bugs, my friend, but love to hear your feedback on what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying. Well, don't tell me you can if you want to tell me what. It's not that we'll listen to it, but we'd love to have you. I hope that you look at me in this podcast the way that Jill Biden looks at Donald Trump. That's how I hope you look at this show with admiration and love and affection. And I hope that I'm hoping you're giving me the Jill Biden eyes right now. I'm hoping you're giving me the Jill Biden eyes. Kathy's in Colorado, Estes Park, beautiful place up there. Love Estes Park, the gateway to the Rocky Mountain National Park. The gateway, yes. Please look at me in this podcast like Jill Biden looks at Donald Trump. That's how you should look at this show. I think, Kathy, do you look at me like that? When you see me on the screen right here, are you looking at me like that? I hope to goodness you are. I really, really hope to goodness you look at me with that much love and affection. Radio podcast feels. I'm with you in the house of Lakey. Feels like you're with me here in the house of Lakey. Yeah. We're talking about when we start adding the advertisers. I'm going to be excited to see. We're putting a founding package together. If you want to advertise with us, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey. The top tier is going to be there'll probably be their big logo behind me in the house of Lakey, and it'll be fun. So we're working all those details. Scott says would rather have you on in the 7 to 8 a.m. hour. Okay, that's interesting feedback. We surveyed before we started and said, what hour did you listen most? And 7 o'clock in the radio signal was big because people were commuting, and that's when people listen to the car. So kind of the thought was, first of all, I got tired of waking up at 4 a.m. That's always a plus. So we don't have to wake up at 4, even to do a 7 o'clock show. But it's interesting. Who knows? We may expand this. We may start earlier. We may go an extra hour. We are not bound by the confines of corporate America, okay? We're our own bosses here, and we could expand this. And so maybe a 7 o'clock. The reason we chose not to start at 7 a.m. because a lot of folks, if they are commuting, it's hard to listen to the YouTube channel or a Facebook feed or a Rumble feed while you're driving. And so we figured we would kind of split it right down the middle. If you get to the office place or you're kind of settled, you can watch this since it's video based. And we figured let's start at 8 because some people maybe are in the office by 8. And then we start at 9. If we started at 9, some people are like, I got to work. I got a staff meeting at 9 o'clock. So anyway, we'll work on it. We'll tweak it. But I appreciate Scott. I do appreciate the feedback. I really, really, really do. All right. I'm going to remind you. One more quick reminder. Go subscribe at Patreon. I'm asking you, telling you, you got to subscribe to the Patreon page. We'll play a snippet of it tomorrow, but I interviewed the esteemed Trevor Loudon last Friday, and that's going up live on the Patreon, I believe, today. Got a lot of great interviews still to load today. If you're 7-day free trial, no obligation, 7-day free trial. If you don't like it, just hit cancel, and you won't be charged. It's $9.95 a month, and it's exclusive content. If you like the Michael Daughtry interview, there's an interview you got to go back there and hear. It's from Dr. Naomi Wolf. That's talking about the Pfizer papers. It's $9.95 a month, and I appreciate you go to subscribe to that. And this is free. That's not, but there's great interviews that we won't play in their entirety or at all on this free platform. So go subscribe. It's a 7-day free trial, and I'd appreciate you join the Patreon family as well. Also, don't forget sponsorship info at jimmylakey.com. All right, one more time. Tomorrow in Colorado, all of you Colorado folks know it's Colorado Gives Day. Last week was Giving Tuesday across America. And I would ask you to donate. This is our final week of the drive. Look at that fancy little mug there. I would ask you, my friends, to go donate to our charity work. This is our final week of raising funds for our Christmas drive. We're going to send some more money over there. Shoes, $30 a month. $35 buys a pair of shoes for a kid that wouldn't normally have shoes. $75 buys some feminine products for a young lady that sometimes skips school because of certain times of the month and don't have access to certain things that young ladies need. And also $90 buys a kid a blanket and a mattress to sleep on. A lot of these kids sleep on dirt floors or banana leaves. And so there's a lot of ways you can help. I just want to give to the greatest need. We'll put it to work and over there as well. It's our Legacy Christian Academy, riverspromise.org. All right. It's been a great fun. This again, share this, like this, continue to listen to it. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning with all of the news. There's a fight breaking out. Protest groups are outside of the Daniel Penny trial. And people are like, they're fighting. Some people think he's guilty. Some people don't. But that's kind of a breaking news story. I just looked up and said, it's not that big a deal. All right. Tomorrow morning, we'll be back here 8 o'clock. Sorry, Scott, not at 7, but I do appreciate you tuning in at 7, Scott. Who knows? We could expand in the future. Riverspromise.org is a charity. Info at jimmylakey.com to advertise. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. If you're on the Twitter feed, if you're on the X feed, thanks for listening this morning. We'll be back. Keep spreading the word. And let's keep making the House of Lakey and all the people gathered in here. Let's see how many people we can get in the House of Lakey. How many can we get in? We can get as many as we want. Hello, Red Wave America, Media Equalizer. Thanks, Brian Maloney, for giving us access to your pages. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I really do. Please keep looking at me like Jill Biden looks at Donald Trump. And I mean this. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'm out of here.